My name's Ken Evans, and I serve as president of Lamar University. My, it's dark out there. Welcome, those of you that are not students, faculty, and staff. I welcome you to campus. We're pleased that you're here to take part in this event. The Judge Joe J. Fisher Distinguished Lecture Series was established 28 years ago to honor Judge Joe Fisher's many contributions to Southeast Texas and Lamar University. Judge Fisher was a towering and legendary figure in the region, indeed the nation. For 40 years, he served as U.S. District Judge for the Eastern District of Texas. Nominated by President Dwight D. Eisenhower, many of Fisher's wise and resourceful rulings were landmark decisions which have shaped the legal landscape of this nation ever since. Lamar University, along with the citizens of the community, bestowed an honorary doctorate of law degree on Judge Fisher and later endowed this lecture series to remember Judge Fisher's legacy and to benefit Lamar students by bringing world-class figures to the university. Past lecturers in the Fisher series include former President Gerald Ford, author Larry McMurtry, human rights activist Vladimir Sakharov, evolutionary biologist Stephen Jay Gould, journalist Linda Ellerby, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, historian Arthur Schlesinger, former Prime Minister Shimon Peres, DNA scientist James Watson, and former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto. I'd like to take this moment to recognize and express our appreciation of Judge Fisher's children who are with us today. Joe Fisher Jr. and Ann Winslow Fisher, please stand. If we could get lights kind of refocused back on the audience for a second. Please stand and receive our applause. Could we do that? Could we reshuffle the lights for a second? Apparently not. But I do want to thank you for being here. Sometimes logistics are challenging. I'd also like to thank the Beaumont Foundation of America, Mr. Wayne Rio, members of the Fisher Lecture Series Committee, and many others who made this day possible, including today's guest of honor, Mr. Jon Huntsman. It's not possible to capture the width and depth of Jon Huntsman's life and contributions in my introductory remarks. We actually just spent some time together over lunch talking about a variety of stories associated with the Huntsman legacy. If I did so, frankly, it would take more time than we've allotted this afternoon. Mr. Huntsman is a man who fits comfortably among the world-class figures I just mentioned. Even better, he's really one of our own, having left an indelible mark on Southeast Texas, as many of you know. Jon Huntsman was born in Blackfoot, Idaho, the son of a homemaker mother and a schoolteacher father. From these humble roots and with his family, he moved to Palo Alto, California, where he graduated from high school. Riding his early academic successes, he enrolled on scholarship at the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. He graduated at the top of his class and then met his future wife, Karen. Following a tour in the U.S. Navy where he served as a gunnery officer, he returned to Southern California and earned his MBA from the University of Southern California. The foundation was indeed solid. His business career began with a fragile undertaking, an egg company. He was responsible for the foam carton we take for granted today. He actually then, in turn, made that product available for McDonald's for the styrofoam container that held my major food group when I was growing up, the Big Mac. He was a pioneer entrepreneur who developed small plastic packaging business and later a series of integrated petrochemical companies. He founded and is the executive chairman of Huntsman Corporation, a global manufacturer and marketer of specialty chemicals. I could go on at length about his successes in this arena of our economy, but let me simply say the corporation employs more than 12,000 employees, has locations and reach around the world, which we were talking about a bit over lunch today, and generates revenues in excess of $11 billion. The measure of Jon Huntsman, though, extends far beyond his business successes. He is a man of service. He served our nation not only in the naval service I mentioned earlier, but also as an administrator in the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare for President Richard Nixon, and later as Special Assistant and White House Staff Secretary in the Nixon White House. He has served the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for more than 50 years and served in countless leadership and philanthropic roles. He has served students of ethics by authoring a best-selling book on corporate ethics and moral decisions, a book I have indeed read. He has served the American Red Cross in its powerful mission. He has served humanity in quiet and yet very profound ways. The Chronicle of Philanthropy ranked him second in their list of largest donors. Forbes magazine counted him among 18 most generous givers on the planet. He and his wife founded the Huntsman Cancer Center, one of the nation's premier cancer research institutions. University buildings, facilities, programs, and colleges across the country bear his name because of his generous service to education. He has received 13 honorary doctorates. Jon Huntsman has generously supported Lamar University. The Jon Huntsman Senior Legend Scholarship, created by the Beaumont Foundation of America, has opened doors for many of our students. Jon Huntsman and his wife are parents of 9 children, 56 grandchildren, and 9 great-grandchildren. I have received the Christmas card from Jon Huntsman, which is a landscape photograph of his family, and it is an amazing depiction of the tremendous family that he and his wife have and share with all of us. Peter and James, 2 of his children, are with us today. I would ask the lights to shine on them, but I'm not going to go down there. Let's just give them a round of applause for being with us. I could go on, ladies and gentlemen, but frankly, I'd really rather turn this over to Mr. Huntsman. The 11th Judge Joe J. Fisher Lecturer, Mr. Jon Huntsman.
Thank you very much, President. Such a great honor to be with you today, and I'm humbled to be in Beaumont and to be here with good friends and old friends, and I'm grateful that you take the time today to join with us in these few words. I'm particularly grateful today that I had the chance before we arrived here a few moments ago to have a lovely luncheon with President Evans. My old friend President Simmons was there. It's an honor to be with him, along with Senator Ellis, who is a great man and great friend, and Pastor Adolph. We thank you for being there. And Judge Bobby Wortham, who's been a close and dear associate, joined us as well. And I'm very grateful for these gentlemen for being there. I just wanted to say a word about Buddy Lowe and Wayne Rio. I know their names have been mentioned, and you'll hear them in history over many years to come, together with the great name of Joe Fisher and Joe and Ann, Joe Jr. and Ann. It's an honor that you're here today, and I certainly acknowledge you. And we spoke about your father, Joe, and the great work he had done, both as a district and federal judge, and the legacy that he has left. And I assure you that today I'm deeply honored to present these words, and I hope that he would approve of them, and I hope that he would feel comfortable in having me as represent him today in this auspicious and very worthwhile endeavor. But I wanted to say a word about Wayne and Buddy. I serve with them on the Beaumont Foundation. Some of you may not be acquainted with the Beaumont Foundation. It's here in town. It's a foundation that they established and have asked me to serve on their board. And they do so much good, including a tremendous gift that they've given, along with their family, to this remarkable university. So we thank you all very much, and Buddy and Wayne, we thank you. President Evans, you've been so gracious and kind and hospitable to us, and everything you've done here has been so well organized. We thank you very, very much. I just have to say one thing about your area. 22 years ago, I mustered up enough courage to buy Texaco Chemical Company. And Texaco had been here for many years, as many of you know. And they were a little surprised that somebody would come along who wasn't a big company and buy them. But it began a love affair with Beaumont, with Jefferson County, with the surrounding areas, Port Neches and Port Arthur and several other communities. And over the years, we've put a lot of money, and we've had wonderful, wonderful people, wonderful associates associated with our business. This last year, we've put over $500 million in improvements and modernization in our facilities here locally. And over the coming years, we plan to put a dramatic amount of money in this area. In fact, it will be our largest single area in the world of manufacturing and jobs, and of having the right type of people and the right kind of people associated with us, for which we're most grateful and very, very appreciative. So I want to thank you all for allowing us the opportunity to be here, the opportunity to operate in such an area where people are honest, they're dedicated, they're loyal, they're hardworking, they're the great all-Americans in every possible way. And so I thank you for this privilege to be back again in an area we love and revere so very much. It's a particular pleasure to have with us today Stu Monteith, who is one of our divisional presidents, and also, for me, a great honor, two of my sons. James Huntsman is one of our divisional presidents, and it's a great privilege to have James come here from Houston, and then our CEO globally, the one who runs a business and who travels around the world incessantly to keep everything going. So, as he says, I'm trying to make it as fast as my dad gives it away. And that's our son Peter. So if some of you have a few questions afterwards, I would hope that one of these three gentlemen could maybe respond in a much more effective manner than the old man. But it's been a great privilege to be in this industry for over 50 years and to now be back to what I call home. You know, over the years, there are times in each of our lives where we have those moments where we get discouraged a little bit, where the challenges become substantial, or we may have a disappointment, or we may have stumbled along the way. And some of us feel during those difficult times that we need somebody to buoy us up, somebody to lift our spirits, somebody to tell us we can do it, somebody to give us hope and encouragement. And I've found that person over the years to be a man by the name of excuse me, Wayne Rio. And he always has a special thing that he says to me. And no matter how much money we have or how lovely our families are, our children, our wives surround us, we always have those moments of discouragement where something's happened in our life. And he always says the same thing. He said, God did not put us here to fail. And he's told me that now so many times over the years that I thought I'd use that as my theme today to just share a few of Wayne's and my comments to you and thoughts about how we sometimes get ourselves into a bind and we find that we're not put here to fail, we're here to succeed. But we're here also to overcome obstacles. They may be health-wise. Tomorrow morning I go back in the hospital for my 17th operation. I've had cancer 4 times and a number of other things. One of the doctors said I was a walking miracle. And I said, no, I'm just getting started. I've got another 20 years to go, and I intend to live it out and do a great job. But sometimes we run into economic problems or energy crisis or problems in our marriages or with our friends. And we must remember that we must always have faith in ourselves, that we must believe in what we are doing, and we must be a person of integrity and honor at all times. It's totally up to us, each one of us. It's not up to our parents. It's not up to anyone else in our life. But it's up to us, not our professors, not those around us, and not even our ecclesiastical leaders, as much as we love and revere them. But each one of us, each individual soul, each one of you, including me, are responsible unto ourselves. And what we become and who we are and the footprint that we leave in this life will be based entirely upon what we do and our own footwork and our education and our sacrifice. And it's not fair to blame others for something for which we're responsible. We must believe in ourselves and don't give in when the going gets rough, because tough times never last. Tough people do. You are now laying a great foundation for your work for the rest of your life. Many of you here today are younger, and you're going to find that these challenges will grow even deeper as you get older. But you must determine in your heart and in your mind to never cut corners, never demean other people, or waste time just hanging out. Decide who you are, what your goals are, and then go for the roses. Life has little regard for those who waste time. My father and my grandfather were both rural school teachers in southern Idaho and in Utah, and it was my hope to someday follow their example. But I refused to forsake my own dreams, and each day my mind was filled with new ideas and hopes and aspirations. I would never listen to anyone who spoke negatively or acknowledged that there were shortcomings which could not be overcome. Anything is possible, I would say. Everything is possible. I always believed that life isn't always fair, but we should be. I always thought that the key to life is to find happiness in any given place or any given time. People around us cheer when we are happy and positive. Self-pity is the most negative quality of the human soul, followed closely by a lack of gratitude. If one is happy and positive and truly believes in himself or herself, great achievements can lie ahead of you. I mentioned to you the story. I mentioned to you that our second son Peter is here today. Let me tell you just a little bit about Peter. Peter only went to college for 1 year, and people said, well, I wonder if he'll amount to anything. And after a year, we had a little business, and I said, Peter, I'd like you to come into this little business and see what you can do. After a year, he had worked day and night, and so I moved him up rather fast and made him president of the company. And within 2 years, we were profitable, and he had shown what he could do. And then he started out driving a truck for our company. And over the years, he's gone from a truck driver, and I might add, in 1983, he won the Truck Driver of the Year award. And today, he oversees a global empire in 75 countries of almost 12 billion in sales. And what he's done is this. He reads about a book a week. He's the most knowledgeable historian I have ever met, including those with PhDs. He's a chemist. He's a chemical engineer. He knows more about chemistry than I'll ever know. Are those 3,000 or 4,000 chemical engineers or PhDs or chemists that we have? But he's been self-taught. He's taken the opportunity to teach himself what he didn't learn in college and what he wanted to do in his own way. Each of us have a pathway to perfection. Each of us have a pathway to success. and they're not all going to be the same. What you do may be totally separate or different from what your neighbor does. And Peter is a very good example of this. Our son James, who's here with him, pursued a little different career, a little different path. But he too has been successful in his own way, and he has my greatest admiration and respect. Throughout life, in my heart and soul, I wanted to explore the world. I wanted to reach into the unknown, to travel beyond my childhood boundaries, which was mostly farmland in Idaho. It is so important that we each live our own dream, not someone else's dream. If what we are doing in our life is not our own dream, then whose is it? Can I explain this best, please, through a personal experience? When I was attending college at a very challenging Ivy League school, things weren't going very well for me, at least not academically. Some of you may know what I'm talking about. It was a struggle for me simply because I didn't apply myself to the rigorous studies that were at hand. After my sophomore year, I went home and visited with my father. He encouraged me to change my major and to attend a college that was not so difficult. I thought about taking an easier route, and I remembered the wise commentator, radio commentator that I'd heard recently, Edward R. Murrow, when he made this statement: difficulty is the one excuse that history never accepts. Think of that. Difficulty is the one excuse that history never accepts. I returned to college my junior year, having visited with my father about becoming a rural high school teacher like he was. But I became a new person. I applied myself. I studied diligently. My grades skyrocketed, and upon graduation 2 years later, I was awarded the university's highest honors. Thus, I realized between my sophomore and junior year that it was my dream I must live and not my father's, and that I must achieve it through adversity and hard work. Making dreams become reality requires great sacrifice and determination. Most people are content to just coast along. Many really don't like to apply their talents and abilities or to put in long hours of work. But to achieve any dream and to make something truly remarkable happen in our lives, we must face adversity head on, and we must overcome all of the obstacles in our pathway. Today, obstacles are significant, particularly those of you who are attending college. Some of you are working part-time. Some of you are married. Some of you are having other struggles and challenges. They are everywhere. It's easy to become a prisoner to abusive behavior while we're going to college and while we're out of college. And we think there's no way out. Just think of the complex issues today that affect us. Suicides are at their all-time high. Pornography plagues many young men and some young women. Drug abuse is almost rampant throughout our college campuses. Eating disorders, sexual identity, and addictions that come in various forms and disguises. These are very real challenges to many people. Every family feels at some point the heartache and pain of watching a loved one or a friend falling prey to one of these life-altering demons. Once ensnared, most individuals believe they have little chance of escaping. But I say unto you, your life's dream can be achieved. These demons are only momentary setbacks. Do not succumb to desperation. Don't get down on yourself. You can create a pathway to success. There is always a road to recovery, and many of us have traveled down that road. With regained balance and confidence in life, we can make it. Our dreams can be fulfilled. We should never, never give up on ourselves. We must follow the example of the little train that could, trying to pull its load over the mountain. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. Today, this economy represents a challenge that we have never witnessed before. Some of our families have lost homes. Some of us, perhaps our relatives or friends, have lost their jobs. Almost everyone has lost something or has been diminished in some capacity. May I suggest to you that contrary to public opinion, there is much to be learned from the lessons of these difficult times. Benjamin Disraeli, the former Prime Minister of England, stated, "There is no education like adversity." May I say a few words about adversity? My sweet mother died of breast cancer while in her 50s. Her mother passed away from the same disease in her 40s. On my mother's tombstone in a small Utah town are etched the words from Shakespeare, "Sweet are the uses of adversity." I've never understood what that meant until the last few years, because until one has plunged into the depths of near disaster or felt the pains and sorrows of terrible illnesses or economic collapse or marital breakdown, one probably has not understood what it is like to grow from adversity. Sir Winston Churchill, another great British Prime Minister, who led his nation through the unrelenting struggles of World War II, once stated, and I quote, "We receive our inspiration from the mountaintops, but we receive our maturity from the valleys of life." In other words, Sir Winston was trying to tell the people of England that we can stand on the mountains and become inspired by the magnificent sight, or we can go through the heartaches and the pains and the sufferings in the valley of life and emerge stronger, more competent, more self-assured, and more victorious. Always remember, the valleys of life determine our character and our integrity. God did not put us here to fail, but to overcome these challenges. Many of us here today are either going through one of the valleys of life or will someday experience one of these challenges or moments of adversity. It is always interesting to observe how people react during times of crisis. Indeed, our very own character is formed by lessons of trial and challenge. Character, in turn, emerges within each of our hearts and minds to establish our own personal set of standards, or as the outside world would refer to it, our personal integrity. Integrity is critical to our lives, to our dreams of achievement. We must remember that without integrity, nothing else matters, and with integrity, nothing else matters. Thus, personal integrity, shaped and fashioned and molded to a great extent by adversity and personal trials, determines the individual or person we represent to others. We must each remember that God did not put us on this earth to fail. We are His children. We are here to succeed. The obstacles placed before us will be many, and in certain cases we may falter or even fail. I love the scripture that says, quote, "He who has repented of his sins, the same is forgiven, and I, the Lord, remember them no more." End of quote. We don't have to carry guilt over our shoulders as if it were a 50-pound bag of rocks. We can and should repent and move on. The Lord has provided the way for us to heal and then use our adversities to great advantage in the future. Thus, as we overcome many imposed limitations or challenges, the door is open for us to do anything in life that is honorable and good. We can follow our dreams and reach the stars and make a difference in the lives of many. My heart is continually broken because of the premature death of our beautiful daughter Kathleen at the age of 44. She left us 7 beautiful young children. Our son Marky is mentally challenged to the point where he cannot read or write, or in many instances even speak. Notwithstanding these devastating shocks to our family, we are happy and productive and love one another and trying to put behind us these heartaches of the past. We must remember always that we are not put here to fail, and therefore we must remain strong and upbeat. And notwithstanding the many heartaches so many of us carry with us each day, we are here always to succeed and to move ahead and to put behind us those heavy, heavy burdens which some of us carry with us. I had the privilege to start our business 44 years ago. And as I said, today I am spending it faster than they're able to make it, because I love to give money away to charities that help the poor and the needy, and that help the sick and the afflicted, and that help those who are sick with cancer and other diseases. But when I started the business, I had no money. I came from a poor rural area, and I had to work diligently as a young man to help my family make it through life financially. I'd been awarded a scholarship to college, as I mentioned, and I worked through college additionally to pay for the extra costs that the scholarships didn't cover. Then for several years after graduation, I worked for a small company to gain experience and wisdom. I went to school at night to receive an MBA degree while having our young children at home and while serving approximately 20 hours per week for my church. Thus, after much preparation, when I decided to form my own company, I asked the banks for a loan, but was rejected. I said to myself, no is only the beginning of a conversation, particularly with a banker. Filled with confidence, I returned many times to the banker, and I finally wore him down. Bankers need to be worn down. He granted me a meager loan, and I began a small business. Step by step and acquisition by acquisition, we grew and expanded. On many occasions, as we built these businesses, various bankers and attorneys and accountants would tell me it was impossible to proceed. But I forged ahead because I genuinely believed in myself and my family, and I was adamant that no one else was going to determine my own personal destiny. And no one else but you will determine your own personal destiny. Each one of us is responsible for our own destiny and no one else. Throughout these many years, particularly the early years, the thought came to me repeatedly that difficulties in life are intended to make us better, not bitter, better. Roadblocks always seem to surface, but slowly over the years, with determination and prayer, a great business evolved. Has it been a challenge? Of course it has. Almost every day is a struggle for many of us. Tomorrow morning, I go into the hospital, as I mentioned, for my 17th operation. I'm not the least bit concerned about it. Tomorrow night, I'll be up and around and doing just great. And we must remain positive because nothing comes easy. Next year, our company will celebrate 45 years as a reputable global enterprise with a respected name. We have fought every day for honor and fairness in dealing with our associates, with our communities, with those with whom we deal. Challenges will affect us every day. We refuse to fall for pyramid schemes or get-rich-quick gimmicks. They are always guaranteed to backfire. We have never been sidetracked by the lure of easy money. There is no such thing as easy money. That simply does not exist. We are often told in the scriptures that our need to be our brother's keeper and watch over those less fortunate and those who are underserved. I keep behind my desk every day, and I read it faithfully, the following statement: "For I was hungered, and you gave me meat. And I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. And I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me." And the king shall answer and say unto them, "Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of these, the least of my brethren, ye have done it unto me." I also keep another daily reminder behind my desk that expresses the words of the great industrialist Andrew Carnegie in his declaration of the law of accumulation of wealth. He states, quote, "We are to consider all surplus revenues which come to us simply as trust funds which we are called upon to administer in the manner in which, in our judgment, is best calculated to produce the most beneficial results for the community. Thus, the man of wealth becomes a mere agent and trustee for his poorer brethren. I love that quote. My heart is deeply touched every time I embrace patients at the Huntsman Cancer Institute or greet one of the thousands of students who receive our scholarships, or embrace the homeless in many countries who have given up on themselves. Wealth, if utilized wisely, is a blessing to all involved. On the other hand, an unwise servant can create chaos and misery and unhappiness if wealth is misdirected or not used for the upliftment and betterment of mankind. Thus, our charity will become our legacy. To those of us here today who are students, in your studies, you have been taught correct principles with which you must now govern yourselves. Have the courage to be true to what you know is right. Have faith in yourself. You have great power within your human soul, each and every one of you, to accomplish something great. The accumulation and use of wealth for the betterment of others is only one form of greatness. Our paths will be as plentiful as there are separate individuals in this great university theater today. Never deny yourself the right to reach your individual dreams. You and the Lord working together can establish anything. Never forget, God did not put us here to fail. One might question the survival of integrity in today's marketplace of deceit and dishonesty. May I share this personal story with you as I conclude, which I hope will show that this is possible. Some 24 years ago, my young business was struggling, and I badly needed a partner. A recent economic recession had been devastating to our earnings. I decided to sell 40% of our company, and we would retain the other 60%. We found a willing and able buyer. After much discussion, we arrived at a price for the 40% valuation he would buy. We shook hands on the deal. Then it painfully took more than 6 months for the buyer to write the contracts that provided a legally binding agreement between us. During that 6-month period of time, our earnings had increased dramatically, and the business was in a rapid growth mode. Sales were the highest ever. Financial consultants on Wall Street told me that the value of 40% of our company, which the buyer and I had agreed to 6 months prior, was now worth 5 times that amount. Things had changed. Moreover, the first oral agreement, our lawyers told me, was not binding because no legal papers had been signed. Since nothing had been signed in the beginning, and since our agreement was based only on a handshake, the buyers felt an obligation to pay a higher price. I admired them for that, and our business desperately needed the capital. We were expanding aggressively throughout the United States and some foreign countries, and I had many bills to pay. But I informed the buyers that we must stay with the original agreement. I would not increase the cost. My behavior shocked the entire chemical industry. They could not understand my foolishness. They could not understand why I would not take hundreds of millions of dollars more. But I was confident that this was the honorable thing to do, and explained to them that a deal is a deal, and a handshake is your bond, and I will not vary therefrom. When the president of this large international company that purchased the 40% passed away, though I had not known him very well, his family asked if I would speak at his funeral. It was a great honor to speak at his funeral and let his family know what a wonderful father and husband that they had. We always know when we are doing the right thing. Patterns of integrity for life should be formed in our youth. Then we never have to struggle with answers. Always keep in mind, Nothing meaningful can come your way or my way without integrity, and integrity is often challenged daily by adversity. Never let the accumulation of wealth be a goal in itself. Be creative and work hard. Surround yourself with bright, honest, and honorable people. Be a straight shooter and follow your dreams. But above all, believe in yourself. And between you and the Lord, your dreams can and will come true. In your pursuit of your dreams, should never, never forget others. Remember, God did not put us here to fail. And thus I close with this poem. No man is an island. No man stands alone. Each man's joy is joy to me. Each man's grief is my own. We need one another, so I will defend. Each man is my brother. Each man is my friend. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. I know we all are so gratefully appreciative of you being here and sharing your thoughts with us. My colleague Juan Zabala is collecting cards from you for questions that you might like to direct to Mr. Huntsman. But while we're doing that, I have something for you.
Thank you.
This emblem of the Joe J. Fisher Distinguished Lecturer Recognition Series is owned by very few people on the planet. It is a distinct pleasure and honor to present this to you in serving in this role today. John, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll hold that for you if you want. Juan, do you have some questions? John, would you like a seat?
I wanted to say, if you have questions, the ambassadors in the red jackets are the ones who take it, so please hand it to them. Mr. Huntsman, we do have a question for you. You're a man of amazing integrity. The question is how do you deal with individuals that you encounter in your personal or business life who don't adhere to the same standards that you hold?
Well, chapter 5 of the book I wrote made the Wall Street Journal best-selling list, and I don't know how it ever made it, but it did. Talks about getting mad, but don't try to get even. And sometimes we deal with people who are not honest with us and who lie to us or mislead us. And the worst thing we can do is try to get even with them. That never works, because we carry around heavy, heavy burdens when we try to get even. We carry around massive amounts of emotional turmoil and pain within our heart, our mind, and our body. And I would simply say, get mad, go out and stomp up and down, walk around the block 8 or 10 times, or walk around 2 or 3 miles, whatever you need to do. But get over it. Put it behind you. The same with relatives, parents, brothers, sisters. Sometimes we have difficult periods of time with them. But I'm always reminded of the 15th chapter of Luke, the story of the prodigal son. He should have been named the story of the loving father, because this father had these 2 sons, and one of them stayed and helped take care of the family. The other son took everything he had, including his birthright, and went into the big city and made a fool of himself. He embarrassed the family and lost everything he had. And then he came walking back home, and the father saw him walking down the path headed for home. The father had to make a quick decision. How shall I treat this young man? Shall I throw him out of the house? Shall I accept him? Shall I reject him? What shall I do? The father took off his cloak that he was wearing, and he put it around his son, his wayward son. And he went and killed a fatted calf and had a barbecue to celebrate the homecoming of his son. And I think of that so often because it's natural for us to get mad. It's natural for us to try to get even. It's natural for us to want to strike out at others. And so the best thing I could say in answer to the question is hold back. Take a few counts. Remember who you are. Remember that you're a step above somebody else in your ability to love and forgive and forget and move on, and you'll be a better person, and God will bless you for it. Thank you.
We had a question from young entrepreneurs in the audience. If you had one piece of advice you would offer to young entrepreneurs just starting out, what would that be?
I think I'm going to call upon my son Peter to come up here and answer that question. Peter is more attuned to, Peter, come on up. I think Peter's a little more attuned to today's world. He's a terrific young man and runs into entrepreneurs all the time and is a good, mighty good example himself. Peter, please.
Well, firstly, Dad, thank you very much for those kind remarks, spoken in a way that only a father can speak about a son. So don't believe everything you hear. I think my advice as an entrepreneur would probably be quite different than my father's advice. I have the luxury of having been a second generation. He's the guy that had to risk it all. He's the guy that had to stand when nobody else was standing with him. And that really, to some degree, disqualifies me for being up here addressing that very question, because here's a person who actually has lived it. My advice for anybody that would be starting a venture, and for me it's been exceptionally easy to take this advice. I've been very good at it, and I think that's why I'm a particularly good chief executive. And I say this in all humility, that surrounding yourself with people that are better than you, people that think different than you, people that are willing to challenge your conventional thinking. So I'm complimenting myself saying that it's easy to surround myself with people better than I. It truly is. I'm proud to have many of them here today that are here to support our founder and chairman. But I would always strive and encourage you to surround yourself with people that will be willing to fill in the areas of your weaknesses, and people that will be willing to challenge your thought process. I'm always a little bit surprised at the number of people politically on the far right that'll sit and listen to somebody that they agree with 100%, yell at them all day on the radio, something they already agree with. The same happens on the far left. Are we that insecure with our own thoughts that we can't have them challenged? And I appreciate the great words that my father has said here today. And I think one of the great things that he's been able to do is to really surround himself with wonderful men and women of different faiths, different walks of life, different nationalities, and being able to learn and absorb from all these different cultures and ideas and philosophies from around the world. It's made him a better person, and yet never has made it necessary for him to sacrifice his core values. So that would be my thinking on this. But again, you've got a much better person here than I to answer that one. So.
Stay up there, please. Thank you, Peter. I'd only add this to what you had to say. I think there are more opportunities and more creations, more innovation today than there's ever been in the history of man. And sometimes we think the door's been closed on us. And in some industries, big industries, that may be the case, but there are constantly new inventions, there are constantly new ideas, there are constantly new financial engineering ways of doing things. And so don't think that all the doors are shut. The future's never been brighter, the opportunities have never been greater. And Peter's absolutely right. If I had to answer a question, it would be just what Peter said, that our key and Peter's key. It's been a great honor to be a mentor to Peter, because he's been a person who's studied diligently and learned, but he surrounded himself with very, very, very good people. And I've always admired that, because our business runs very smoothly and very, very honorably. And yet we look at our competitors and they have 2 or 3 times as many people at the senior levels. And I think, well, Peter has done exactly what he's advised you today, and I admire that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. One final question. You've alluded to the fact that you've made extraordinary commitment to share the success of your business to help others. The question from the audience is, how is it going trying to get other people with similar capabilities to give more of their own?
That's a very, very good question. And I met with a group of people. I hope you won't think I'm trying to sound self-serving. I just want to try to answer the questions honestly as I can. Warren Buffett and Bill Gates put together a group of billionaires and said that we want you all, some of you read about it, it's called the Giving Pledge, and to give 50% of all of you have to, that you all have to help mankind and to help charities and to help move things along. And we got to that first meeting, and I happened to be one of them, luckily. Never planned on it, never dreamed about it. In fact, I never even knew I was on the list until I read it in Forbes, and I called Forbes and told them I thought they'd made a horrible mistake. And after Warren had given this talk about giving 50% of their wealth away, I raised my hand in the back and said, "May I say a few words?" And Warren said, "Of course you can." I said, "I don't understand why we're only asking for 50%, because the other 50% amounts to $2 or $3 or $4 billion. Why don't we make it 80 or 90%? And that'll leave them each with about $1 billion to live on, and they can get along just fine on $1 billion." And Warren says, "Why don't you sit down and let's try to get 50%. We'll try to get 50% first, because most of them here aren't giving anything." And so it's a struggle. It really is a struggle. And I find that just because you have more money doesn't mean you necessarily have a more generous heart. Generous hearts come to people with very little money sometimes. Sometimes the most generous heart one's ever seen is when a widow lady or a grandmother knits or makes you something because she can't afford to buy it, or when somebody does a simple act of kindness for you, or somebody gives you a $1 bill or a $5 bill, and that's all they can contribute to a cancer. But to them, it's a large amount. And I've always remembered that it isn't how much you give, it's how much you have within your own ability to give. And that's what makes wealth worthwhile. Thank you very, very much. Oh.
Let me just add something to that, because I think there's a misperception oftentimes that people think, when I get it, I'll give it. And once I get to a certain point in life of earning so much, I'll start giving at that point. I grew up with a fascinating story my mother used to tell me. I never heard this from my father, but I did hear it from my mother. And she told me that when they were newly married, my father was earning how much a month as an ensign in the Navy? $322 a month. And my mother said that every month she noticed that there was money that was being bled out of their checking account. It was the low, $30, $40, $50, which is a considerable amount of money given that size of a paycheck. And this went on for several months and for the first year of their marriage, and she never understood where it was going. Just assumed that maybe my father had a savings account or something with this investment. And some months after this had been going on, a lady came up to her and thanked her and said, "I want you to know how much we appreciate what you and your husband are doing for us. We've really been struggling since my husband lost his job." And that was the $30 or $40 per month that have been coming out of this $300 and some odd dollar paycheck. And I've always remembered that story. I have honestly thought that that amount of money was probably the most generous and the most important gift that my father ever gave. And just growing up in the family, I mean, I admire him for what he's done with the Cancer Institute and so forth. But it doesn't start when you turn 50 years old. It doesn't start when you make your first $100,000 or $50,000 in life. It starts with the generosity of a single dollar, of an extending hand of friendship, a smile to somebody, just extending yourself that way. And my father wouldn't tell you that story because it's too personal for him. But don't wait until you hit a milestone in life to start being a generous person. And I apologize for I didn't mean to have the last word, but I think that's something that you should know.
Thank you to Mr. Huntsmans. We really appreciate both of you being here, John and Peter. We have a reception planned in the Dishman Art Museum. We'd love to have you join us. Thank you for being here today.